Bienvenue d'écouter on NS Weekly English News. The Myanmar government has hit out at the UN Special Rapporteur's Yang Healy's latest comment on the people who have fled Arakan state, saying it disagrees with her statement and finds them unfortunate. Myanmar Foreign Ministry Deputy Director General A.A. So said Ms. Lee appeared to be defending the rights of only one group of people and to appease this group in the community without referring to Rohingyas. Ms. A.A. So said this shows Ms. Lee's bias as she was not speaking for both Rakhine Buddhist and Rohingya Muslim communities affected by the October 9 attack in Mongdo, Arakan. After making a 4-day visit to Bangladesh camps housing Rohingyas, Ms. Yang Healy said she heard during her interaction with the Rohingyas was worse than I had anticipated. The magnitude of violence that these families witnessed and experienced was far more extensive than I had originally speculated. Ms. Lee recounted a number of experiences told to her by Rohingyas who fled Myanmar, such as one of a mother who assumed her son has been bored out of a burning house only to realize he was still inside. Another account told of how a woman lost her sight in both eyes because of a fire allegedly caused by security personnel. There was not a single account I have heard which was not harrowing, said Ms. Lee. Ms. A.A. So said the UN Special Rapporteur appeared to have twisted interpretation of the situation in Arakan, making it sound worse than it is. Turkey's Humanitarian Relief Foundation said that it had delivered food to 18,500 displaced Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar this month. The aid, including rice, oil, beans, salt and spice, was distributed in Setway and Butidong in Arakan state. Tens of thousands of Rohingya have fled their homes in Arakan since October, when Myanmar's military launched a crackdown that has attracted severe international criticism of its brutality. Around 100,000 people has been displaced due to oppression and the military violence. IHH Southeast Asia's desk Musid Demir said in a statement over 75,000 people had to settle in and around Kutupalang camp in Bangladesh Cox's Bazar region, which is also known as the worst camp in the world. Nearly 30,000 people had to relocate within Arakan due to oppression and villages being burned down. Hundreds and thousands of Rohingyas, our brothers and sisters, have become needy since then. Director General of Arakan Rohingya Union, ARU, Ms. Dr. Waqar was in Washington for a meeting on Rohingya issue with the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs Deputy Assistant Secretary for Southeast Asia, Mr. Patrick Murphy, and EPA-DRL team headed by Director Susan O'Sullivan. In the meeting, the DJ discussed Rohingya issues at Grantland in both meetings regarding the current 34th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. A status of a proposed clause of Commission of Inquiry in draft resolution took the center stage in the meetings. Other important issues were situation on the ground in Arakan state and the government of policy in Naypyidaw, the Burmese government's official declaration of the end of military campaign, yet no sign of relief for Rohingya from abuse and atrocities, arrival of international aid supplies, but mostly ending up in Natala, Rakhine settlement villages. Also regarding the NVC campaign, an ill-advised scheme by the former military dictatorship is currently driven by the government of Myanmar with all forms of threat, intimidation and coercion. The Rome-based International Permanent People's Tribunal (PPT) have held hearings in London on March 6 to 8 at the Queen Mary University, where evidence have been presented and expert testimony heard on crimes committed by the Myanmar state against prosecuted Rohingya and Kachin minorities. The tribunal was formed in 1979 as a continuation of the earlier Russell Tribunal II, which held hearing on the crimes of Latin American dictatorship. Since that time, the tribunal has successfully completed 42 sessions. Each session takes up a cause of an oppressed people whose collective humanity and rights has been neglected or threatened by neo-colonial or allied forces and structures of powers, and which international institutions and laws code have failed to address directly or provide the requisite moral relief. The value of the PPT are grounded in the Universal Declaration of Rights of People proclaimed in Algiers in 1979. based on the post-colonial experiences and reality of the new forms of imperialism that evolved to oppress and exploit people, particularly those freed from colonization. Credible reports by Queen Mary University's State Crime Initiative, Yale Law School, and numerous rights organizations such as Fortify Rights, Human Rights Watch, Burma Task Force, and others presented evidence of crimes and violations of basic human rights, pointing out to a strong evidence of a genocide against Rohingya. Since October, when Myanmar's army initiated so-called clearance operation in Rohingya areas, there has been an escalation in the genocidal process. Thousands have been killed, 10,000 has been displaced. Whole villages have been burned to ground. Many Rohingya men have been disappeared. Hundreds of Rohingya women have been raped, and mosques have been leveled, all in the name of fighting an insignificant insurgency that has been dubbed by the government as terrorist. European Rohingya Council says government complicit in attacks on police that spark atrocities. A violent security crackdown among Myanmar's Rohingya community in response to attacks on police was orchestrated by the government. A group representing the Muslim minority has told the Anadolu agency. Lai Cho, chairman of the European Rohingya Council (ERC), said the killings of police in Arakan state, where most Rohingya live, on October 9 was organized by the military intelligence as justification of repressive measures against Rohingya. The Myanmar Military Intelligence Department indirectly supported a group of desperate young youths to create a gang and manipulated them to attack security forces in order to legitimize their illegal attacks on the community, he said in an interview conducted by the Anadolu agency's Ankara office. We do not support any kind of violence. We condemned these killings. Lai Cho said that local villagers informed the police of the gang's intention, but police kept silence and did not do anything to stop it. He added, so that means the government is behind these attacks in order to justify their actions against Rohingya. Security forces have met with Rohingya representatives from almost every village and warned them that there will be dire consequences if the Rohingya refuse to register under the controversial NVC scheme. At the same time, they have presented many advantages of accepting the NVC. Last Saturday, officials held a meeting with the Rohingya representative, 3 from every village. Here, they said unless if a Muslim refuses to accept NVC, they will be forced. This might result in increased hardship for the community, they warned. On the other hand, any Muslim in possession of NVC will be safe and will have access to amnesties such as the bank and education for children. They will also be able to travel freely. Security forces also held a similar meeting at Dunsai with a representative from the Rathedong villages. Early, many Rohingya children have been turned away from school and banks and have said no services will be offered unless they are able to show the NVC. Travelers have been harassed by security forces for not being able to show the NVC. The NVC, the card which declared them a non-ethnic group of Myanmar. And now to our international segment. Gunmen dressed as medics attacks a hospital in Afghan capital on Wednesday and battles security forces for hours, killing more than 30 people and wounding dozens in an assault claimed by the Islamic State. A suicide bomber blew himself up at the rear of 400-bed Sardar Muhammad Daud Khan Hospital across the road from a heavily fortified US embassy, providing the signal for 3 attackers with automatic weapons and hand grenades to open fire inside the complex, according to the witnesses. Defense Ministry spokesman Daulat Waziri said the attack was suppressed by the mid-afternoon, with all 3 gunmen killed. As security forces swept the hospital building, and another ministry spokesman said that they found more than 30 dead and 50 wounded, including doctors, patients, and hospital staff. The gunmen, dressed as medical personnel, had taken up positions on the upper floors of the hospital and engaged the special forces sent to the scene, officials said. US President Donald Trump's administration is waiting a deployment of up to 1,000 American soldiers to Kuwait to serve as a reserve force in the fight against Islamic State as US-backed fighters accelerate the offense in Syria and Iraq, US official told the Reuters. Proponents of options, which has not been previously reported, said it would provide US commander on ground greater flexibility to quickly respond to unforeseen opportunities and challenges on the battlefield. it would also represent a step away from the standard practices under the President Barack Obama's administration by leaving the ultimate decision on whether to deploy some of those Kuwait-based reserve force in Syria or Iraq to local commanders. This is about providing options, said one of the US officials who spoke on the conditions of anonymity. The official said the deployment would differ from existing US troop presence in Kuwait. Thank you for watching this Shape City. Hope to see you very soon with more news.